Matt Cornwell doing his show. It's on his song, and we always enjoy having him as our breaks. And we've had a pretty good show so far today, I think. I think we've all been enjoying it. I know I have. And I do want to take an opportunity, though, because we now have on the line with us our guest, Gary Goldman of WCRN. And Gary, you can hear us, yes? Can you hear?
How are you today?
Oh, I'm doing fantastic. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, I can hear you pretty well.
Okay, good. We can hear you perfectly, so that's good.
Good.
So, Gary, just to go over, I know that you're a very interesting gentleman because you've owned a couple of construction businesses for the last, I think it's about 25 years. You're a host on WCRN, 8:30 a.m. on the AM channel up in Boston. And I know a lot of people want to ask, how did that happen? How did a guy who works with construction wind up on the radio?
So I'm own a couple of different companies, a paving construction company and a consulting company. Mm-hmm. And the consulting work I do is teaching contractors how to, operate their businesses, estimate, et cetera. But I got into the radio end of it when someone from actually WCRN came in to try to sell me some advertising and then asked me if I would do a show on contracting. And I said, not interested in contracting. And next thing you know, I was doing a business show and then a business and politics show and now business, politics, and lifestyle. So it had been on there for about a little over 10 years now. And it's I'll tell you, it's an enjoyable experience on a weekly basis.
Well, that's always a good thing. When you can enjoy what you do, that makes all the difference right there.
Right. And there's never, there's always plenty to talk about, as you well know, on a daily basis. I mean, the news cycles change as we're speaking, so there's always plenty to talk about.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, just in looking at what we were looking to talk about, Joe Biden and the 2020 race, but that kind of, as the news enveloped, that involves Venezuela, that involves the Second Amendment, it's economics, so it's everything there. And speaking of which, I know you've been following the 2020 election. I know you're very close to New Hampshire there and what's happening, probably more so than here in New York or what many other people may be noticing. So what are your thoughts about Joe Biden, the 2020 candidates, and the push towards the fringe left, the Democratic Socialist movement?
I look at. I'm not surprised with the push that Biden has initially jumping into the race. Though there was a point for a few weeks there, I didn't think he would jump in, but he has jumped in, and he's just another one of the 20-something that are running for president. So I think the vice president will probably have an easy time of it as he travels from city to city, one-on-one, town hall meetings, whatever they want to call them, whatever they call them when they go out there. They all come up with a different name. And I think he'll be okay. His challenge is going to be when those in his party, and there's no doubt about it that party is leaning more and more to the left and, have a very progressive left agenda, are going to push him to start asking where he stands on things. And I think that day is probably not too far off. Sooner or later, if he continues to gain any type of momentum, they're definitely going to put more and more pressure on him to define where he is and where he wants to, where he's going to be. So with that said, I think, if we were to push things forward and say we're at the first debate, Joe's not going to be able to go on there and sort of lay things down. The vice president will just lay things down and say, well, here I am. He's going to have to be specific or they're going to rip him apart. And the other reason I say that is because I do personally feel, and, in the Northeast here, and especially in the Boston market, a lot of colleges, Bernie Sanders, I firmly believe, has the great possibility of being the nominee for the Democrats when it comes to the final, run for the presidency. Ooh. The students in and around Boston here love him. Everybody loves the freebies because they don't understand what the freebies cost. He winds up the college kids, and there's an element of the population that likes what he has to say. So as we get, further and further along, I think Joe Biden will either do something or say something that pushes him completely out of line with what's going on politically, or they're going to push him to make a decision where he stands and I don't think they're going to like where he particularly stands. The other side of Biden that I think he has to be concerned about somewhere in the back of his mind is what's going on with Attorney General Barr is looking to investigate the Obama administration for their involvement in this whole Russian collusion scam. And somewhere along the line, I think people are going to be indicted and possibly go to prison. How far up the line that's going to go, but that will have some sort of an effect on the president. You know, as much as, you know, those on the left love Obama and they love Biden to some degree, you know, when you have a country that's almost gone through a soft coup, it doesn't matter what your political affiliation is, you have to be concerned. And if indictments start coming down and arrests ever start coming down, that's going to me, definitely affect Biden.
Okay. So I love it when I talk to other hosts of programs because, like myself, we can talk on so many subjects and we bring so many things into a conversation because we're paying attention to so much. So let me break down a little bit of, I don't know if you heard about the Harvard-Harris poll that just came out, and it has Biden up by 30 points. Now, that poll I don't think is targeting or there hasn't been an impact yet that shows whether or not Biden agrees with the Democratic Socialists, which I don't agree. I think he's against that. He's not a fringe left, and whether DNC Chairman Tom Perez is correct or not, that the rest of the party is going to the Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez direction, I don't think Biden's there. I think you're right as well that we could see Biden lead for a while, but he's going to have as he answers that he's not this Democratic Socialist, he's going to lose a lot of his support. I tend to think, and I've been saying since October, that actually I think that the Democratic Party is going to go for a all-woman lineup against President Trump, also focusing on the far left, the fringe left ideology. And so we're looking at Warren, Harris, or Gillibrand. Two of those three are going to be on the ticket. That's my point of view.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think when push comes to shove, Joe Biden is not going to stick his neck out as a far left progressive and go along with some of the crazy things that people like Ocasio-Cortez, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez wants to lay on the table, and that's going to hurt him. And look, for some reason, even if Vice President Biden snuck by and became the nominee, he could not. In one debate, he would be wiped out with Donald Trump debating him. I mean, I think Donald Trump would wipe the floor with Joe Biden. He's not anywhere near as quick as the president. I don't think he has the factual information as the president. I'm not sure he has the intellect as the president. And I, you know, there's a part of me that likes Joe Biden as, you know, Joe Biden, the citizen. I'm not crazy about Joe's politics over time. I don't think he's ever really committed to anything. And when he does, some of the stuff he says is just totally outrageous. You know, look as we both know, there's a long road ahead, a long march to the first primary, and it's going to be an interesting march. But I think a lot can happen. And again, you have an element of this party, of the Democratic Party, and I have a lot of friends here in Massachusetts that are, you know, Democrats to the left that are even telling me this party has gone too far. It's just too far for the left. Am I going to vote for them? Probably if the right candidate is, you know, on the ballot. But I've had people tell me if it's a Bernie or someone, you know, with just these crazy ideas of, you know, the United States should be looking at a more socialist or democratic socialist agenda or a socialist Democrat. However they want to put it, we know it's just manipulation of words. We all know what socialism is. All we have to do is look at Venezuela and we can see what socialism is and the effects of socialism. So it will be interesting. But and you know, the other part of this, and you know, not to beat on this topic, but the Democrats have said all along they don't want an old white male. And right now the two top guys are old white males, and I think that's a problem within the party. I think the party's pretty, you know, broken up. They need some leadership. I don't think Pelosi's given them anywhere near the leadership, excuse me, that they need. So it will be interesting. And you know, these are great conversations to have because I always go back and listen to some of the things I said, and I say to myself, how could I have been so right or how could I have been so wrong? But that's the beauty of politics.
That's always the beauty of going back in time and saying, well, I completely got that wrong. Or I got it completely right. Why didn't more people listen to me? You mentioned something that I thought was really of interest, and it caught my attention. Well, actually, a couple things. Because you're right. The party that says that they hate rich, white, old men is led by two rich, white, old men. And the rest of the party and the rest of the candidates are either rich or, well, actually, they're all pretty much rich and or white, and half of them are male. So it's kind of interesting. But one of the things you mentioned is the attention of the younger, the students, the younger generation towards this. I think most people who are older are to some degree or another more closely aligned to what we're thinking about in terms of what's important for the nation, the non-socialist viewpoint. But for those students that you have been talking to, let me ask you, how are they looking at it just because it's free stuff and they just haven't looked at the consequences of it? Are they looking at things like Venezuela, North Korea, and are they not making the connection that this is where that free stuff always winds up leading, is you wind up in a government like that, a very totalitarian, less free kind of life?
Well, I think that's an excellent question. I think, look, there's a generation out there that thinks that everything should be handed to them. Corporate America is greedy. What we always hear about the 1%, and give me more, give me more, give me more, hand me more, hand me more, hand me more. Look at Bernie Sanders is the poster boy for this. Anything that he can give away, he'll give away. My Senator Elizabeth Warren's not too far off in that regard either. But it's just I want, and I'll take. But here's the problem, as you have alluded to. They don't understand, that there's a cost to this. Somewhere along the line, those that are, that 1% or whatever they want to call them, I don't really like using the 1% term all the time, but those that are feeding the tax coffers, making that free stuff available, if you keep giving away things, and and give me, take, those 1%ers are going to say, wait a second, what am I working for? All I'm doing is throwing tax dollars out. People are taking it. There's no return. There's, the infrastructure of this country's gone down the tubes. We're not getting anything in return for this. So that's always the danger. They don't see that correlation. And if they do, they see it in a whole different context. But the context that they should see it in, that should bring it to life, is Venezuela. Venezuela, was one of the wealthiest countries in the world. Now they can't even afford a roll of toilet paper. And when you talk about Venezuela, I think you have to, I like to talk to people and say, to really understand what's going on in Venezuela and what a failure socialism is, last year in Venezuela, the average person lost 25 pounds. Think of that.
Yeah.
25 pounds. And people say to me, well, what are you talking about? They lost 25 pounds because they don't have money to buy food. Mm-hmm. There's no water. They can't live like human beings. That's what they call socialism. Then you start seeing some of these stories that are coming out even today on Venezuela. Some Hezbollah, someone got involved with Hezbollah. They were bringing drugs and that type of stuff into the economy, and the money was being stolen. It's a nightmare. So as horrible as the situation in Venezuela is, it's a perfect time to show the contrast between that and democracy and capitalism. And I'll tell you right now, most countries that are socialist countries, they may not be to the degree that Venezuela is, though there are several of them out there, but they do not do well, and that 1% turns into the middle class very quickly, because that 1% cannot feed the economy, and that's when you start to really have the downturn, and things go south quickly, and it's just a shame. It's a myth, and you know what else is the bigger myth here?
What's that? The
bigger myth is that people like Bernie Sanders, who are multi-millionaires.
Mm-hmm. Yes, he is.
Michael, they're multi-millionaires, and they preach socialism while they have used the democratic system and the private sector to become wealthy. That story we'll never hear, because the mainstream media is never going to tell it. The Bernie Sanders, the Elizabeth Warrens, who talks about free college is too expensive, after she has charged Harvard University $425,000 plus or minus to teach one course. That's the hypocrisy that those that want to buy onto the socialism haven't really connected with yet. Some have, but very few have connected with it. And it's an important connection because that would be it would be the downfall of the United States of America. And you add to this universal basic income that they want to give away. Every person in the country gets X number of dollars. What's the incentive to get up in the morning if that's the way we're heading? There's no incentive. Capitalism would be gone.
Oh, yeah. It makes no sense. I mean, why? It kills all innovation. That's why Russia had no innovation under the USSR. Other than military, they didn't innovate because they had the 5-year plan and there was nothing to be created. They already had the plan for it. But I think you bring in some really great aspects of that. And I think it's really important for people to understand, and you're right, the story is dead on arrival whenever anyone asks about the capitalism that has been used by Bernie Sanders to make millions of dollars that he will not give to the government or to charities, and Warren, who lied to the government, took advantage of minorities or minority status that she didn't deserve to then take advantage of capitalism to be able to earn so much money that the average person she wouldn't allow to do either. I think you're right. Those are important stories. But let me ask this. And you're correct, because ultimately we start to see what we see here in New York State. Governor Cuomo, February, admitted the New York State was going to lose $2.3 billion because everyone's leaving. Because he kept taxing the rich and the rich left. And now we find out that we're actually, with the budget came down, $3.2 billion. We're losing $3.2 billion on top of the fact that we have to add more taxes because we are having the fastest exodus of people, approximately 1.5 million people in a decade leaving because no one wants to pay for this socialist paradise that goes to illegal aliens and not citizens. Are you seeing a similar thing like that in Boston?
I'm starting to see the exodus from this area. Talking with people, they want to get away. It's too expensive to be here. Look at when you have, and we have plenty of them here, sanctuary cities, and you're giving things away to everybody that comes through the gate, lack of better words. Then sooner or later, those that are contributing to society through tax money expect certain things from their government. They don't expect for their taxes to go up. They don't want to be feed to death because that's the code word for taxes. And I've talked to a lot of people that are looking to states to go to that have no, income tax, where there's a lower cost of living, that are a little more strict on who they let into the country. I find it hilarious that those, even your governor and your mayor in New York City, and here in Massachusetts, they all talk about sanctuary cities, and there are 4 sanctuary cities, except when the president really said, I'm going to send the illegals, once we process them, to these particular cities, and all of a sudden, wait a second, we're going to sue you if you do that. They talk a big storm, they talk about what they're trying to do, and then when push comes to shove, they don't want to deal with it. And the reason I said that is because they know they're out of money. They don't have any money right now to run the city and pay for the services that they've put on themselves. You go into school systems here in Massachusetts, the students are in the hallways learning, the quote-unquote taxpayer students. The illegals are in the classrooms getting taught, English lessons. I mean, really, if I'm a taxpayer in one of these communities, I'm losing my mind that my kid is not getting the education he or she should be getting. It's way out of whack, and, people are trying to find some happy medium. It's hard to live somewhere where expensive, whether it's Boston, New York, where it's expensive to live to begin with, never mind adding these extra burdens on free child care, free, Medicaid for everybody, universal income. We could go down the line, things that they want to give away. Sooner or later, people say, what am I working for? What am I doing this for? I've got to find a place that makes it a little easier on myself. And I think it's starting to become a concern for those here in Massachusetts, leadership, the governor, and other people, because they are starting to see a trend of people that have had enough. Look at the left is so crazy that they just did a survey on the city of Boston and traffic time. It's probably one of the worst cities to get around. Excluding New York City, but it's difficult to get around. And they're taking, I don't know if, I'm sure you've been to Boston, the roads are small enough to begin with. They're taking the roads and making them smaller so they have bicycle lanes for people and doing all of this stuff. If you can't put the cars on the road, what's the thought process that you're going to take lanes away, put bicycle lanes in, and wonder why people are frustrated with living in that community, trying to get to work on time, and giving away every right that a taxpayer should have, get to work on time. I want to go to work. I need to go to work. I need to make a living for my family. I think we've gone so far off kilter in the country at times that it's hard to pull things back, and I think people are frustrated in there. They're trying to find places where it's going to be a little easier to live without all the rules and regulations. Not that they don't want to pay their fair share of taxes, but the rules and regulations that are costing them a lot, and they're not getting the cost benefit in return.
I think most people would agree with that. And I know we have about 5 minutes here left, and I thank you for the conversation because it's covering so much ground. I love it. I have to ask, looking at Boston, two things. One, how did Boston react to hearing that Bernie Sanders and so many of the 2020 candidates are in favor of giving criminals, convicted criminals, the right to vote, and some of them, like Bernie, even going so far as to say, no, while you're in prison, a convicted criminal is allowed to vote. And the Boston bomber is one of the examples that he pointed out, saying, no, even this person, heinous, criminal, evil person, we should make it possible and use your taxpayer dollars to go and give him a vote while he serves that sentence for killing innocents. I mean, how did that?
I think the people with common sense were outraged over this, but I'm gonna let you go with this.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about a community, a state, where we just had a district court judge indicted by a federal grand jury for letting an illegal who was charged with some serious crimes out of the back room of a courthouse because she did not want him to be arrested by ICE. And a week later, after her indictment, the district attorneys are suing ICE because they want to protect the rights of illegals. That's the mentality of our government in Boston and Massachusetts. I'm not quite sure that's where all the people are, but when you get into Boston, Cambridge, and those surrounding towns, there's quite a bit of it. But I think, all in all, to answer your question, people are outraged, but the news media is not going to run that story for any length of time because it goes against the narrative of the Democrats and the liberals that are running for office. We have 2 or 3 from Massachusetts running, and if they go against them, they'll never have access to them, so they're never going to really tell their true feelings, never mind their true feelings of what the populace really believes. So, we're living in some, as you probably well know, some crazy times, but when you have district attorneys more concerned about the rights of illegals who've committed crazy crimes, something's very wrong with society and something we better deal with quickly.
No, I agree with you. It's troubling to see the direction we're going in and what we're willing to do for illegal aliens, convicted criminals like the Boston bomber, and strip away rights like the red flag laws and take away people's children as a consequence of those red flag laws. And yet the mainstream media overall won't speak about it. But thank goodness, people can listen to you on WCRN. It's on the AM dial at 8:30. That's the 8:30 AM. And they can see you on, you said it's Fridays, Saturdays at 8. Is that right?
Fridays at 1 and Saturdays at 8 a.m.
Saturdays at 8 a.m. Okay, fantastic. And I hope people do get a chance to check you out and hear more about what you're doing. I look forward to it. I noticed when I was looking and doing my research, we're very much the same. So people who enjoy speaking with me or hearing me will enjoy you. And I think it'll be a really great, I definitely want to follow up with you as the election goes forward. We see this field of Democrats whittle themselves a little bit.
I'd love to talk to you again in the future.
Absolutely. I thank you. I thank you, Gary, and I hope you have a great day
today.
Have
a great rest of the weekend.
You too. All right, folks. And so that was Gary. We had him on the show, and he's Gary Goldman out of WCRN AM channel. That's 8:30 on the dial. He is really an interesting man. I enjoy speaking with him. I enjoy speaking with all of our guests. We do so well that we have such a great, diverse group of guests who have so many different ideas, and I enjoy them. I really, really do enjoy them. They do a great job. Now, when I listen to this, to think that Boston and Harvard, and I'm looking here at Binghamton University, and I'm looking at all the colleges throughout the nation, and we have so many kids that just seem to be saying, yeah, let's give up all of our rights. Let's just go for the free stuff and not see the consequences of what happens when you do that. When you give up those rights that you will never get back again. Well, short of having, like in Venezuela, which is the excellent example for this generation. They gave up their rights, and the only way they will ever get them back is if their revolution works. And even then, they're not guaranteed to get back their rights, because we don't know what's going to happen with the revolutionaries who take charge. They may not give the people all their rights back. They may be trading one dictator for another. And this path, it starts pretty much where we are with Bernie Sanders, where we are with Elizabeth Warren, where we are with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, where we are with Antifa and political leaders of tomorrow, and Citizen Action, the fringe left, where this minority fringe group promise everything to you. But they hide the fact that, one, that means you're not going to get anything, and two, it's going to cost you everything. Just like we were talking about earlier in the show. You need red flag laws so that you will be safe. You need the New York SAFE Act so that you will be safe. And everyone in the nation should have those laws so that you will be safe. Except those laws don't make you safe. Look at the data, FBI Crime in the USA. Look at the New York GIVE report, gun-involved violence. I forget what the E is all the time. It's a report. Look at the reports. Look at the CDC data. Strip out the suicides and look at the actual data. You'll find out. It's not there. You're not being better. The government's not better. It's not saving you. You're not safer. You just have less rights. And the government has more power. We look at the economy. You do what we say or there will be doom and gloom and it will never work and you'll have nothing. And yet more people have things and are doing better now than ever before. You go and look at everything. It's just infuriating. But what I do want to do is I want to thank my guest, Gary Goldman, for being on. I want everyone to think about what we've talked about. And we look forward to being back with you. 2 hours, it just goes by so quickly. But we'll be back on Tuesday at 1 p.m., Thursday at 1 p.m., and then next Saturday from noon till 2. We are always looking forward to hearing from you. Leave us your comments, whether it's on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitter. We're looking forward to talking to you. And I hope everyone will be well. Enjoy your weekend. I'll talk to you again soon. Thank you.